Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is another Pop Fly Pop Shop interaction. I love this as a fan because we get to highlight art from Daniel Horine, who's here live, highlighting his art piece this week. The great Dave Stewart, 20-game winner, 4 years in a row, 87 to 90. Almost nobody modern-day pitcher had a better run. Cy Young votes every single year. MPV votes sprinkled in that stretch. Unappreciated postseason beast, World Series MVP. I just looked, by the way, Dave Stewart, on an Oakland A's ranker. You're ranked 7th most popular A's of all time, above both Bash brothers. Thank you, Dave Stewart, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Who are the other 6?
I know Ricky was ahead of you and Vita Blue. Maybe we'll get you up to 5th by the end of today. How about that?
Yeah, we gotta see if we can get those rankings up.
We'll correct everybody. Daniel Horine, can you please show your Pop Fly Pop Shop art this week for Dave Stewart?
You got it.
There it is. And if you're new to Pop Fly Pop Shop, what it is every week Daniel creates an original art. It is a comic book style cover. It's not a comic book, but it's a comic book style art. And the way it works is these are available for only 1 week, and then they are retired forever, and you're forced to pay exorbitant prices on the secondhand market. And this week is Dave Stewart. Daniel, what led you to choose Dave Stewart as your next athlete to be celebrated?
Well, Dave, you're definitely on my radar as a young baseball fan. Loved the A's growing up, and you always really stood out to me, even at a young age. And so as I've been kind of diving into this project, you know, I'm kind of going through the mental Rolodex of the players that I loved growing up, and you definitely came to mind, and you know, I got really excited. And actually, this is one of the few that I jumped the gun with. I had finished it, and I said, Can we do something with this? You know, usually I'll reach out and then we'll work out something together. But I was so inspired with this one, I just jumped the gun and showed it to you right off the bat.
It's very well done. Quite frankly, it's really nice artwork. It's very, very well done.
Thank you, Dave.
What was your reaction, Dave, in seeing yourself on a comic book style instead of maybe a traditional, typical baseball poster?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I loved the what we used to call the funny papers. So I've always been a fan of comic book style art, caricatures, that type. And so to see myself on it and to see it done so well, you know, I was just really, really blown away.
What were some of those comics that you enjoyed as a kid? I'm curious.
Well, I was always a Superman and Underdog. I love Daffy Duck and the Tasmanian Devil. It's crazy because I'm 64 years old. And yesterday I was reading an article that Tasmanian Devils, the actual Tasmanian Devils, which I always thought it was a comic character, or they're actual Tasmanian devils that were I guess they were becoming an extinct species, so they were gathered and brought to an island in Australia. They were supposed to be, you know, having them, which obviously since they sent them to Australia, they are now flourishing, but the dad blasted Tasmanian Devils ate up about 3,000 penguins, and so now they've killed up a bunch of penguins. But I had no idea that a Tasmanian Devil was a real animal, and so I was shocked to see that when I read that the other day.
Huh.
I love picturing 10-year-old Dave Stewart reading the comics, reading Superman, and the nickname Smoke. That's from childhood, isn't it?
Yes, a good friend of mine, Tack Wilson, gave me that name from Little League. And believe it or not, it wasn't from pitching; it was from catching and throwing down the second base.
So why did he call you Smoke? Where did that come from?
Well, Tack played infield positions. In this particular day, he was playing second base, and so when I was throwing down to throw a runner out, I threw the ball down, got the runner by a long way, and what Tack said was, "Throw that ball, Smoke! Throw that ball!" And the name stuck with me ever since.
Man, as a 10-year-old, that's a dream nickname to me. That's
crazy, isn't it?
You don't want to know the nicknames I had when I was 10. Not as flattering.
So how did that make its way into your MLB career, though, if that happened in Little League?
Well, he followed me. We were both signed by the Dodgers.
Oh, wow.
I was signed by the Dodgers in 75. He came in 76. And then we started playing on the same minor league teams, and that name came alive once he got into the system.
So did it drop away a little bit, like in high school?
That name stuck. It stuck forever because, we're both from Oakland, the Bay Area. So if you're playing at Royal Viejo Park or Bushrod or Greenman's Field or wherever, all the same kids played against each other or played with each other. And so I played with Tack. You might see Ricky Henderson playing on the team, Gary Pettis, Lloyd Mosby, Marvin Webb, somebody, Ed Miller. I mean, the area was full of guys. And so once you get that name, you never get away from it. And those names that I just rolled off all played professionally, and I played against all of them in the minor leagues. And so if I saw them in a town, then guess what? Smoke was going to pop up again.
Yeah, it's incredible. Daniel, can you show Smoke again? And I don't know, Dave, if you've seen some of Daniel's other art pieces. There's some in the background, but this is a more simpler design, Daniel. What kind of led you to make that artistic decision?
Well, in thinking about it, this is sort of a return to kind of my original form of the whole project. This is, I think, project number 42 of mine. So there's quite a bit stacked up behind this, and some of the earlier pieces are just some of the simpler ones. And so, yeah, this was just an intent to kind of return to form and just get something simple and classic.
Can you, in the words there in the text bubble, can you share where those came from and how'd you land on those, Daniel?
Let me see if I can. Okay, I'm trying to read it verbatim. So he's saying it's important. It's the one thing to be. It's one thing to be a good baseball player. It's even better thing to be a good human being. And that's a quote that I had taken from one of your interviews, Dave. And so it was important to me to highlight in this piece that, to define inspiration behind it, because, it's there's a mysterious look there, with the cap pulled low on the brow, but there was no connotation ever really that I picked up on that he was what you would call a bad guy in terms of in comic book terms, good guys, bad guys. So I wanted to note that he's a hero. He's not a bad guy. He's might be intimidating, but he's our hero. So that was that intent.
Can you comment on that, Dave? What's that line between you were intimidating pitcher, but you are a good guy, you're a hero? Why is that important to you?
I quite frankly, the guy that pitches and the guy that goes about his everyday life, they're two different people anyway. I think when I took the mound, I was a win at all costs kind of guy, and as long as the game was played fair, no cheating, playing by the rules of the game, but using every aspect of the game, pitching inside, you have to knock a guy down, those type of things, those were all a part of my repertoire in winning baseball games. And if you don't pitch in a confrontational way, pretty good chance you're not going to win the majority of the time. My objective was to win more games than I lost, knowing that you're going to lose some games, but win more games than you lost. Be dependable to your teammates. Be a good teammate, and protect your teammates. And that's what I did when I pitched. Away from the baseball field, I grew up in Oakland. I grew up in East Oakland. I was a recipient of many things. I was from a family of 8. My father passed when I was 15. My mother worked 2 jobs. And if you know East Oakland at all, there's a lot of opportunity for trouble. And so because of the family dynamic, along with baseball, Pop Warner football, ONBL basketball in the summer months, boys and girls clubs, those were the things that kept me on the straight and narrow. And so as I grew up and as I got older, it was always my intent to be a service to the community. If I was ever to have the life that I've had, which is I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to make money, take care of my family, but along with that are the gifts of giving back to your community, and being able to be useful in your community. And there are a lot of issues and problems that continue in the community of Oakland and East Oakland in general. Now we've got homelessness. We still have drug issues and problems. The crime rate is still high. But that doesn't mean that you can't still create or try to create a better environment for the youth, because youth are the ones that you have to look out for and you have to take care of, and you have to be sure that you can create a path for them to do right, as I had a path created for me. And so I guess, growing up in church, family background, foundation, and the youth opportunities that I had put me in a position that, I wanted to do good in my community and be a good person in my community. And baseball allowed me that opportunity.
As I hear you say that, Dave Stewart, do you have concerns that the A's are looking at possibly moving? Is that going to hurt that community a lot?
I think we should all have concerns from the Bay Area that we're going to lose our last, in my opinion, major sports team. There's a strong tradition of the Raiders. I guess use this slang or slogan best. Commitment to excellence. So the Raiders have now gone. They're in Vegas. The Warriors originally were a San Francisco team that came to Oakland and moved back to San Francisco. And the A's, since 1968, have had a strong tradition of winning and being a part of the community. When I was with the A's, in the years that I played there, the Haas family were our owners, and they believed in commitment to community. And so, now that it's the back is the community's back is against the wall to keep this team in the community. I think that we have to do everything that we can to keep the team in the community, and I believe that when it comes time to vote, I think that the city council will do the right thing and be sure that the A's remain a part of the Oakland community.
I couldn't agree more. We're here live with Dave Stewart and with Daniel Horan of Popfly Pop Shop. Maybe you're a Dave Stewart fan and Popfly Pop Shop is new to you. Every week he creates one comic book style art, and then it is retired forever. And this week it is the Dave Stewart, the Great Smoke, that we're talking to, and that is available on popflypopshop.com. It is $50, and it will be mailed to your house. It's not a comic, but it's an incredible comic book style art. It was featured on MLB The Stove. They're wonderful pieces of art. I happen to have every one. So Dave Stewart, you get drafted by the Dodgers, and they move you from catching to pitching, but it seems like they don't know what to do with you. You keep going back and forth from starting to the bullpen. What are your thoughts on the Dodgers at that point in time and baseball in general?
I mean, once I got to the big leagues, they did have a tough decision to make. And, I was basically a reliever / spot starter in my early career. I mean, if you look at our starting rotation, we had, when I first got there in '78, there was Bert Hooton and Don Sutton, and Charlie Huff was a part of that rotation. Uh, I mean, we had a great starting rotation, and it wasn't uncommon in the '70s, the '80s, that a career minor league starter would be brought up to the big leagues and kind of given a baptism of pitching in the bullpen for a year or maybe two before you earned your spot in a starting rotation. You kind of had to wait for guys to either be traded, be free agents, and move on before you got a spot in the rotation. And my starts mostly came from injury. My first start was Bert Hooton got hurt, and I was able to get an opportunity to start. And that created more starts for me while he was on the disabled list. And then the next year was the same thing, pitching out of the bullpen and pitched in many roles. I was a closer slash setup guy slash long guy slash middle reliever, all different roles for the team at that time. And, people thought that, my numbers weren't very good at that time, but my numbers were good enough that they made a playoff run in August of '83. And Rick Honeycutt was the was the number one starter for the Texas Rangers at that time. And I was traded for Rick Honeycutt. And then in Texas, I got an opportunity to start once I was traded there and went 5-0. And then somehow in the next year, I ended up spot starting and relieving again. And so it took until Tony La Russa and the A's in 1986 for me to get a consistent opportunity to start and show what I was capable of doing.
And tell me about that transition, Dave, because the Phillies released you. And as an objective fan at that time, it's not looking on the upswing for your career. And then what do? You roll off 4 20-game seasons on the A's. Like, how did that happen?
Well, I'd like to say it was bad player development and bad player evaluation on the part of the Phillies and the Texas Rangers, because, I mean, if you look at my track record in the minor leagues, I had nothing but winning seasons in the minor leagues when I got an opportunity to start every 4th or 5th day. When I got released from the Phillies, that one I didn't understand at all. I felt that I was probably better than everybody in that rotation, with the exception of the great Steve Carlton. I thought I was better than anybody in that rotation. I never even got an opportunity to start there. And so, I was signed by the A's, and really for the first half of the season, didn't get very many opportunities there either with Jackie Moore, Wes Stock. And so it really became a matter of, and Tony told me this as well, when he took over the team, he wanted to look at who the healthy bodies were and who he felt would give them an opportunity to win his first game as the manager of that team.
Wow.
And he based that on the fact, and I never remembered this, but he based that on the fact that in 1983 in Texas, I pitched against the Chicago White Sox and I shut him out. And he remembered that. He remembered that, and that warranted me an opportunity to get a start for him in his first game as our manager.
You never know who you make that impression with, right?
You never know.
So again, we are live with Dave Stewart and Daniel Horine from PopFlyPopShop.com. Submit your questions in the chat, and we will do our best to get to those near the end. This print is only available till Sunday. Now, Daniel, you mentioned that from this era, the kind of the late 80s, Dave Stewart was one of your favorite players. You're in LA County. We got the Kirk Gibson going on. How are you drawn to Dave Stewart and the Oakland A's?
It was hard to escape. It was hard to escape, like the Oakland A's of the 80s. It's all eyes are on that team. You've got just these sensational, not only players but personalities like on that team, and so it's just very attractive, especially if you're a kid. Like, oh my gosh, like look at these very, very much like comics. Look at these characters, look at these heroes there. So it was just a very compelling team. as a kid, just as a whole.
And that team, Dave Stewart, when you look back on like the whole Bash Brothers thing, are you feeling like, hey, you guys do your thing and I'm just going to keep throwing up wins after wins? Or was it kind of annoying that they got so much attention?
Well, I mean, that's one of the best things about our team is, I think we all checked our egos at the door. On a given day, and if anything made me a little uncomfortable or not real happy is that it's a general perception of fans that we scored a ton of runs all the time, and I used to make fact of this that you got to remember on the days that I pitched, I had Jack Morris and Roger Clemens and Dan Petrie and Frank Viola and Chuck Finley. I had the number ones from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't scoring a whole lot of runs on the day that I pitched. But I got to tell you, when we got to spring training, it was driven in our brains that we were going to score 800 runs. And if you're going to be in the starting rotation, you needed to make a start every fifth day or fourth day if necessary. That it was not something that was desired, that we have starting pitchers that can't make their starts, make 35 to 37 starts a season. And that was what was expected of us, with Kurt Young and Bobby Welch and Mike Moore, Storm Davis, that first year, which would have been 87 and 88, we did our jobs. Then in 89, once again, we did our jobs. And, we added Dennis Eckersley, and we had Honeycutt pitching out of the bullpen for us with Joe Klink and the different guys that we had matches with in the bullpen to make us a real solid bullpen. And so, Storm Davis one year won 19 games, only pitched 160 innings.
Wow.
So, we were a solid team in the hitting. It was the most unbelievable thing to watch a batting practice with our offensive team, and to show you how well respected we were. And I don't think I've ever seen this happen again. The opposition stayed out and watched our guys.
Wow.
Through batting practice. And that in itself is flattering. And so, when you got McGuire and Canseco and Ricky Henderson at the front of it with Dave Parker and Harold Baines and Steinbach and that group of guys, it was, I got to tell you what, I don't know that I'll ever see as siding a lineup as I had the opportunity to pitch and play for in that period of time.
Wow. That's great. Let's talk about the stare. And if you could show the print again, Daniel. I would love to hear both of you. Daniel, what about the stare? How did it make its way so perfectly in your print? And Dave Stewart, tell us about that stare. Was that natural? Did you force it? Did you create it?
Well, in terms of the artwork, I had completed the piece, had it done, but there was no story in it. And one question that I've been asking myself as I do these, we can see what makes players unique, but what makes them special. So I think for Dave, like one of the besides the pitches, one of the things that you had in your arsenal was your persona. And so that's kind of what I wanted to pick up on here is just that very like iconic death stare. That's how I've heard it described in several interviews, is the death stare. And so that's, there's obviously the smoke here. There's kind of smoke wafting all around, but the stare, like that's the story, it's the narrative that I wanted to kind of tell here.
And well, for me, when I was in the minor leagues, I was really, really wild. I was converted catcher to a pitcher. My first two seasons in rookie ball, I had minimal to no success at all. And, I needed help. I got to instructional league in at the end of the 1976 season, and Sandy Koufax was there, and Sandy worked with me hours upon hours upon hours in the bullpen, and told me his story of when he signed, and his inability to throw strikes, and told me some of the things that worked for him. And so we started with the change of my whole delivery. We started all the way from scratch, and then we went from the delivery to, as he put it, lowering your sights. I was a guy that wore my cap up on the top of my head at one point, and then he said, "What I'd like for you to do is lower your cap to the point that you can see a smaller target on the catcher. So I want you to get it to a point where you can only see below its neck." And so obviously it meant that I had to lower my head a little bit. But when you lower the cap, now the target is exactly what you want it to be. You don't see anything here. Everything is from here down. So it almost makes it impossible to throw anything up here. Everything now is in the lower part of the strike zone. And it worked in instructional league. And then I got to spring training. It worked in spring training. And then that 77 season, I ended up winning 18 games and losing 4. And that changed my whole career, working with Sandy Koufax, that one instructional league.
Wow. Let's show that print again, because I love that stare, and I love the choice to put it in twice. It reminds me of those old 80s baseball cards, the sports flicks, that when you flick them, it has different pictures. It's like, I'm hitting here. I'm trying not to get intimidated by you, Dave Stewart, and bam, there's another stare right in front. I can't get away from it. This is available again on popflypopshot.com only until Sunday, and then it's retired forever. Dave Stewart, I was looking through your postseason. It's insane to me. You were in 5 World Series. I mean, King Griffey Jr. was never in 1. Phil Niekro, 24 seasons, never is in 1 World Series. Did you realize how special that was, or you just get used to it and expected it?
To be honest, I kind of expected it. Once I had done it for the first time in my rookie season with the Dodgers, that's all you really play. That's what you play for. You play for championships and being in a World Series, and so quite frankly, I had never even played for losing teams until I got to Texas. We had the 2 losing seasons there. Philadelphia, I didn't count that one, but then I did have the finish of the '86 season. We ended up losing with Oakland that year. So it was 3 losing seasons in 16 years. '87, we played at 500, and in '88, we were in the playoffs in the World Series. And so I wanted the best opportunity I could put myself in to be in a World Series. And what's really fortunate is that my career evolved to a point that I could be a part and make a difference, not the sole difference, but make a difference whether my team was there or not. And starting the first game of each playoff game and starting the first game of each World Series game, with the exception in Toronto. And I got to tell you what, Cito Gaston was very gracious even then, because we had Jack Morris, and Cito asked me, I know what your streak is, so I want to be respectful and ask you. And he wasn't telling me, he was asking me. Jack's been here. Jack was with us last season, and I got the message, and I said, no, you have to do what you have to do. And so, it was. I never thought about the players before me that didn't play in World Series. I just knew once you play in one, there's no other place to be.
Again, this is before wild card, before realignment. And so you made 8 playoffs, which is about every other year, in 5 World Series. That is absolutely incredible. 133 innings, Dave Stewart, in the postseason. And your ERA is sparkling. 3.32 for the World Series, 2.03 in the ALCS. How does that work? Because you're theoretically going against the best of the best in the playoffs. How is it that you elevated your game in the postseason?
You know, anybody that says that they're not aware of what's happening on the other side, they're not telling the truth. You know that you're going to be limited in how many runs you're going to score, and you know that you're going to have to minimize your mistakes. And so somehow, some way, my execution and my focus was just better in that short series against the teams that I played against than it was in the season. I wished I could say I could concentrate that well for 35, 36, 37 starts, but that didn't happen. But when you look at it, look, I got this game, and this is the game that counts. And if I win this game, then that gives us an edge on the team that we're playing against. It makes all the difference in.
There, we got you back. You're good.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that. The extra focus when it matters the most. We're again live with Dave Stewart and Daniel Horine. Can you show the print one more time, Daniel? This is available on popflypopshot.com. Now, Daniel, you did Ricky. I don't know if Dave had a chance to see you, Ricky, but you haven't done McGuire. You haven't done Canseco. You haven't done Giambi. You haven't done some of these other Catfish Hunter, Raleigh Fingers, Eckersley. What led you to Dave Stewart to celebrate his career?
I think it was just like I mentioned before, just kind of that fascination as a 10-year-old with that A's team. You know, just the characters there, the personalities there. It's just never left me. That's when I think back on you know baseball in the '80s and first falling in love with this game. You know, like this was kind of the team as a whole that I fell in love with at the time. And so it's just kind of reaching back in that reservoir of childhood and you know, pulling that's always been there.
Now, Dave Stewart, as a kid, I didn't like you for a couple of reasons. One is you always shut down my Angels. And then as a Fernando fan, you took away so much of his celebration by throwing a no-hitter on the same day. Now, you were on that team with Fernando Mania. And so when you threw that no-hitter, I'm curious, did you reconnect or were you like Fernando Mania, whatever, I'm Dave Stewart? Was there a reconnection there?
Well, as you know, we were both rookies the same year, and there's no way we would have won a World Series if it had not been for him. And I've not seen as much excitement for a single player in baseball since Fernando Mania.
Wow.
If you would have to be there to see what took place when that young man took the mound, it was absolutely unbelievable. And he may have been the first player to put an attendance clause in a contract because you couldn't find a seat when he pitched. You couldn't find it. But on the no-hitter, he took my thunder. I threw the no-hitter first. and you know, I've told this story, and Fernando will remember this. I threw my no-hitter, and I got a call. I believe he was in St. Louis. And I got a call telling me, "Congratulations, Stu. Don't turn the TV off because I'm going to do the same thing." And he sure enough pitched the no-hitter.
Wow. I've never heard that. That's incredible.
Yep.
Well, it's like Babe Ruth calling a shot.
That's a tough one to call there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're here again live with Dave Stewart, postseason hero, 87 to 1990, best pitcher in the game, hands down. Get that last question in before we go to them. I'd love to hear you brag about your wife, Dave Stewart, because this is something I wasn't aware of. She has broken the color barrier. She has broken the gender barrier. Can you share what she's done, what she's doing in baseball, what she has done?
Lonnie is she's a sports agent. And I mean, on top of that, she's a Black female sports agent in, as you know, a male dominant world. She has done a tremendous job. She took over the business of Sports Management Partners, or better known as SMP, in 2014. I mean, she's just done a tremendous job. Some of her clients at that time were Chris Carter, Matt Kemp, Chad Billingsley, and obviously those guys are now, well, with the exception of Chris, who was non-tendered after having a 40 home run season. Matt Kemp is now not retired from the game, but not actively with a major league team. Chad Billingsley is a retired player now, living in Pennsylvania. But she's represented some great clients, negotiated some great contracts. I think she would tell you that her real specialty is recognizing young talent. She's done a tremendous job in the draft with high school and both college players. I think that once you start really looking at SMP and the players that are coming through the system, you know, I can name a few: Calvin Mitchell with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Kyle Stowers with the Baltimore Orioles, Ryan Garcia with the Texas Rangers, Isaiah Green with who was actually the number 2 pick for the Mets, who was traded to Cleveland. His brother Elijah, who's with the Angels, and there are many, many more. She's got some great players that are top prospects, top organizational prospects, and she's just done a tremendous job, as I said, in the male-dominated world. When she goes in a ballpark, people know that she's there. That's for sure. She's got a presence in the ballpark. She's got respect from the scouts community. She's got respect from the management side, general managers, assistant general managers, minor league directors within the industry. She's well respected.
It's an incredible story, not highlighted enough. Garcia is going to get the Rookie of the Year this year on Texas, no doubt. But Dave Stewart, I just love your story. It is a superhero story. You're an Oakland kid, could have gone a different direction in life, opportunities to make bad decisions everywhere. You make your way back to the A's, back to Oakland, give back to the community. It's a wonderful story. And thank you for being available to your fans. Thank you for partnering with Daniel. Daniel, are there any comments in the chat box that you'd like to bring up?
There is. There's lots of love here. First of all, before there's a question, just favorite pitcher of all time. Watching you pitch was an absolute pleasure. And another one, Dave's the man, one of my favorite pitchers. And the question comes from Scott. He says, the way you carried yourself on the mound reminds me a lot of guys like Bob Gibson or Bob Feller. Who was your favorite pitcher growing up?
Well, I didn't get an opportunity to see Bob Feller. And I had a lot of examples of what you would want to be just there in the Bay Area. When in San Francisco, there was Juan Marichal and Gaylord Perry. And on the Oakland side, we had Blue Moon Odom, we had Catfish Hunter, and we had Vada Blue. But the pitcher that I admired most was named right there. It was Bob Gibson. That was the guy that I wanted to be like. My dad, who was a strong San Francisco Giant fan, worked over in San Francisco as a longshoreman, Pacific Maritime, brought me to nothing but Giants games before the A's were in town. And so I saw a lot of matchups. I saw Drysdale, Koufax against Gaylord Perry and Marichal, and I saw Bob Gibson pitch against the Giants as well. And my dad said, if you're going to be a pitcher, this is the man you want to be like. And so as tough as it was to watch Major League Baseball games back in that day, if the St. Louis Cardinals were ever on TV and I had a chance to watch Bob Gibson, that was the man. That was the guy I wanted to be like.
And thanks for that. And there's actually, speaking of Cardinals, there's one more question. He's got a caveat here. Dave, who's your favorite preferable Cardinals current pitcher?
Well, probably because I had a chance to coach him in the Olympic trials. It would be Adam Wainwright.
Mm.
And I'll tell you what I like about Adam Wainwright. And this I only know because Tony La Russa managed him, but I always asked about Adam. Tony said that he is the guy that I was for the A's, leading that staff, that Chris Carpenter was for the Cardinals when he was leading that staff there, and Chris Carpenter and Roy Halladay, by the way. I had both those guys in my minor league system when I was with the Toronto Blue Jays. And so what Tony said about Adam Wainwright is that he was responsible for that staff, and he was the guy that was walking around or was always available to embrace his teammates on a bad day or give them information to help them be better. He wasn't a selfish guy. And I was glad to know that, because Adam, when I had the opportunity to coach him, that would have been in 2003 or 2004. So that was many years ago, and long before he was in the big leagues. Was a sponge for knowledge at that time. So Adam Wainwright would be my guy with the St. Louis Cardinals.
I know you like Zach Greinke because you gave him that big old contract at Arizona.
I do like Zach Greinke, and it's easy to like him. You know, Zach, though most would consider him to be, I guess, a different personality. But Zach is interested in the game. He's interested in his teammates. He's a student of the game. He understands what he needs to do when he's on the mound. When he's out there, he's making decisions and making adjustments as he goes. This is another guy I had a chance to coach when I was back in I think it was 2004, once again, when he was in the Kansas City Royals organization in the minor leagues. Kansas City had brought me on to do evaluations and work as a coordinator throughout their system. And Zach Greinke was there. And so I've seen Zach when he was a power guy to the guy that you guys know now is, without a doubt, one of the best pitchers in the game. And when I say pitchers, he's a command guy, commands the strike zone, doesn't walk people, mixes up his repertoire with everything that he's got. I mean, he's just a tremendous competitor and a tremendous pitcher.
Well, Dave Stewart, we so appreciate all this time today. You reflecting on your career, on modern day baseball, on Oakland. Is there any direction you want to teach us and point us to how can we serve Oakland where it needs serving? And how do we join the cause of keeping the A's there?
You know, I'm not really sure. If you got an opportunity to blast the city council and make sure that they are aware that their support not just in Oakland but everywhere, then, you know, write in, emails, Twitter, let them know. Keep the A's in Oakland.
All right. Well, Dave Stewart, thank you for your time. We have Dave Stewart, postseason giant, in there every other year. Cy Young winner, 20-game winner 4 years in a row. Thank you for your time. And let's show that art piece one more time before we let him go. This is available on popflypopshop.com until Sunday. Get your own smoke. Get this in your house. Celebrate this great player. Dave Stewart, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for your career, and thank you for the example of giving back to your community.
Without a doubt. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for creating that beautiful piece of art.
Oh,
thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And Daniel, can we keep you on for a couple minutes?
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Dave Stewart.
Take care.
Okay.
Dave.
Take care.
Bye.
Wow, that was incredible. Daniel, I'm struck again by thanking you for pointing us towards the he's not off the rails as he's a Cy Young winner, for goodness sake. But again, if I had to guess who the top 10 80 stars you might be doing next, I probably wouldn't have put him in there. So thank you for pointing us towards somebody who's not off the beaten path, but a little bit less remembered by. I mean, you didn't do Cal Ripken. You didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's there's I say this a lot. Like I think baseball is carried by a lot of people. You know, not just a couple people here and there, but like baseball is carried by many, and there's so many stories, so many characters, so many narratives out there. It's just a lot of fun to like kind of just zig when you might be expecting a zag.
What did you learn about Dave Stewart's career that you didn't know before?
I think you sort of touched on it too, just how dominant he was under pressure. Like I knew that he was, I knew that he had a lot of postseason experience, but just how well he did in that postseason when it matters the most, to be able to focus. I think that's for me when I would unravel. I think, when the eyes are on you, and that's when Dave pulled out his best stuff,
Yeah, anyone can get those garbage innings and stats, right? When they're pitching against the worst teams in baseball, this guy did it when it mattered the most. And he almost hinted at he might have been a little bored when the games weren't that interesting and exciting, and like he stepped it up in the playoffs. And by the way, if I didn't say this, if you have questions directly for Daniel, get those in right now. And Daniel, you can pop those up if any of them speak to you. I have to ask or I'll get killed. Who's next? What are you thinking about?
I can't share that, but I will say this. I am trying to plan a little bit more. Like kind of looking ahead at days like, oh, this is a significant day for this reason, and sort of thinking about crafting it around certain days. But still, I think the muse wins here. If the muse comes, then you should do this player, then I do that. And I do want to share this one thing, and I didn't get to it when Dave was on the line, but I do want to share this starting lineup figure. Dave, I don't know if you're watching the broadcast or if you watch it later, but can I tell a quick story about this starting lineup figure right here?
Yeah.
So this particular starting lineup figure, I own it. It's still in the box of Dave Stewart, and it had a very interesting previous owner. I wonder if no one's ever going to, I would say, could anyone guess who it belonged to? No one's going to guess who this belonged to. So Ronald Reagan was a baseball fanatic, and apparently he collected many things, baseball memorabilia, and he also collected these starting lineup figures. And so the story goes, this particular starting lineup figure here was in Ronald Reagan's collection. At some point, Nancy cleaned house and let them all go, and I ended up with it later. So anyway, I was going to share that with Dave. Thought that he might find that interesting.
That is crisp, by the way.
He kept
that is a clean starting lineup from the 80s. Good old Kenner. Okay, so you said you're going to release a player that has to do with circumstances of context. I'm going to guess you're going to do a Rocky during All-Star break. Is that what I'm hearing? I just say stuff. Yeah. No, not saying that I won't. Not saying that I am. Just I don't know. There's lots of things to look for on the calendar. Lots of history there. So Dale Murphy, Rocky, get it done.
Get it done. Yeah.
Any questions in the comments that are asking you about this wonderful piece that you want to address?
No, there was a great question for Dave right before he left, but asked about his influence on shaping his life values. So sorry that we didn't get to that one. That was a great question. Lots of love for Dave here. A little woo wrote, amazing print, immortalized a great. And someone else saying that Dave reminded them of Bob Gibson. He owned Clemens in the playoffs. But lots of love for this print, and lots of love for Dave.
I'm trying to think, when did he go against Clemens? Was Clemens on the Red Sox and he was on the A's, or was Clemens on the Blue Jays a little bit? Whoever that was, educate us. When did Stewart and Clemens go head to head in the playoffs? That sounds like a fun matchup.
A little woo-woo, give us a little education, yes.
Well, if you could show the print one more time. I love your style that varies, Daniel. Like sometimes we need a little mad Hungarian fighting zombies or whatever, and then sometimes we need to go back to like a simpler classic baseball print, and you do that so wonderfully. This is on popflypopshop.com. It is only available until Sunday. Get it on the first-hand market for $50 before it goes to the second-hand market. Do you have any parting words for us?
In addition to the print, you can also get a version of this print that is signed by Dave Stewart himself. That's also available on Popfly Pop Shop as well. So you can choose unsigned or signed by Dave. Okay,
I'm sorry to mention that. So popflypopshop.com, you can buy the print as is, or for an add-on fee, you can get Dave Stewart himself to autograph it for you. Go hang it up in your home and be inspired to be great in the moments that matter the most. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your art, and hope to do this again real soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you soon.